Hey YouTube, what's up? So I want to come through and talk about something that I really think needs to be addressed, right? Something that I think needs to be called out. But for some reason, I feel like no one ever calls this out. I don't know why. I think maybe people are scared to do it because they feel like they may be creating more division and being divisive, but I don't care because this shit needs to be called out. All right. We got to have a conversation about this. All right. So, have you ever noticed, right, that it tends to be the relationships between dark skinned men and brown skinned men and light skinned mixed and biracial females that tend to perpetuate and breed the most colorism? Have you ever noticed that? Like, when there's conversations about colorism that comes up, you will more than likely find a dark-skinned, brown-skinned man and a light-skinned mixed biracial woman up in the mix somewhere, whether separately or together. And when they're together, that is like mixing like fire and gasoline. It's just is not a good combination. All right. And like, why is that? What happens with that relationship? I don't know. Let's see. I suppose that dark-skinned men suffer from extreme low self-esteem, which is part of the reason why the community tends to coddle them and not hold them accountable for so much, right? So I think dark-skinned men's low self-esteem issues may play a part in this, okay? On the other hand, light-skinned mixed biracial females tend to suffer from extreme identity issues, which can lead to low feeling of self-worth. Notice that the community also tends to give light-skinned black women cover when they perpetuate colorism, right? They tend to make excuses for them, right? So, therefore, you have two people with major issues, right? These two groups of people, coming together to have a relationship, to have children, and to raise children, all right? What could go wrong? Right? What could go wrong with this combination here, right? That's why I think both of those groups of people have problems and animosity toward their respective counterparts for some reason. Um, I don't quite understand why. Um, you would think that their counterparts wronged them in some way, but I don't know if that's completely true, though. Um, but the thing, what I also want to discuss is, well, let me put it this way. Like, think about media, think about the colorism that you see perpetuated in the media, right? Like, I think there was even like a YouTube video about this where it was like YouTube user calling out colorism from all these like couples, and the couples tend to involve dark-skinned men and like biracial women, you know, and a lot of times their targets were mostly dark-skinned women for some reason. Why? I couldn't. Why ain't you guys happy with y'all relationship that y'all got? You know, for some reason these people always want to like go after the dark-skinned, brown-skinned females who be minding their own business. Now, when the brown-skinned, dark-skinned females clap back, then they want to try and flip it around, acting like the dark-skinned and brown-skinned sisters are on the attack and that they're bitter, they're jealous, insecure, can't get a man. this, that, and the third, right? We all know that tired ass song that they like to sing, right? That played out song that they keep on playing on that whack ass radio station of theirs, right? And for me, I personally think that dark skinned, brown skinned black men and light skinned mixed biracial female as collectives are the weakest and most problematic groups in the entire black community. And I think that they know that. I think that they know that on some level. They probably won't admit it, but I think that they know it. And I think that's part of the reason why they act the way that they do towards their respective counterparts and toward um, each other's counterparts. And oddly enough, in some situations, even toward each other. You know, some dark skinned dudes be having some sort of a. It's like she's like a trophy, and that's it, right? And when it comes to trophies, it's like once you win the trophy, you strive so much for the trophy, and once you win the trophy, what do? You put it up. You either put it on display or put it in your um, trophy case. Or you typically just put it away, right? You don't. You just put it away and move on to the next trophy, right? And then some of these females, light skinned mixed biracial females, like they be having colorist tendencies and leanings toward even the men that they're with, because a lot of times they don't want to have children that have the features of the men that they're with. They want children to have the features that they have. But I think perhaps on some level, perhaps they probably weren't, probably couldn't get a man other than a brown skinned, dark skinned man. Because, what woman can't get a brown skinned, dark skinned man? Please name me one woman, one group of women on this earth that can't get a brown skin or dark skinned man. Please, please, let me know. So, that was probably her only option, and this dude was hyping her up like she the best thing ever, right? So she probably went along with it. And, despite her having colorist tendencies or colorist leanings, right? But then when the kid comes and the kid comes out dark skinned, especially when it's a female, that's when things get real, right? And I kind of just wish these women would just be upfront about their preferences for the sake of the children that are involved and just say, hey, I don't want a dark skinned child. I want a child with my features. And sometimes these dudes either they want kind of like perhaps the light skinned mixed biracial daughters, but they may not want the light skinned mixed biracial sons, right? And it's like, if that's really a big deal for you, then I think that you should just be with your counterparts, since you tend to have, want to produce an offspring that is similar to you, right? But the thing is, like, it's a bit of a toss up because he wants the biracial light skinned female daughter, but he doesn't want the son like that. He wants the son like a brown skinned, dark skinned man like himself, while he doesn't want his daughter to be a brown skinned, dark skinned daughter, right? So you see all this crazy ass confusion going on here. And also there are some brown skinned, dark skinned men who probably would just want um, biracial and even perhaps even white passing children altogether. That's an option too. Um, but you see all this crazy ass confusion going on here. Like two weak, very mentally ill people, mental defects getting together and raising children. You see how toxic that is, right? But this is never called out. Nobody ever calls this shit out for some reason. Why? Like, I don't get it. And then well, I won't go into that, but I'll juxtapose this and compare this with, say, the relationship dynamic between light-skinned mixed biracial men and brown-skinned and dark-skinned women. And I feel like sometimes brown-skinned and dark-skinned men want to push this thing like, oh, that brown-skinned, dark-skinned woman wants a light-skinned, good hair baby. You know, they like to push that shit for some reason. And it's like, do you, is that really what you want? Like almost, I feel like that low key is them almost telling on themselves as if that's what they want. Because how would you get that? Especially if she never even expressed any preference that related to that. So how would you come? How would you jump to that conclusion unless you're judging her based on how you get down, right? And I feel like the brown skin, dark skin, female, light skin, biracial male relationship is often attacked for some reason, low key attacked. You know, I have heard stories about um, brown skin, dark skin sisters getting slack from the brown skin, dark skin brothers for being with a light skin mixed biracial brother, right? Like one story, even when the brown skin, dark skin brother was with his red bone, he was still had a problem. He had a light skin, a light bright woman, but oh, she can't get herself a light skin, light bright dude though, right? Only you can have that option, right? She's supposed to just sit around and wait for you to come around, right? Wait for, oh, I guess I can't, oh, I guess you can't get any more um, light bright, biracial, exotical red bone. So, oh, you know, they'll just come and get the brown skin, dark skin women off standby, you know. And I think that's low key what they want. They want the brown skin, dark skin women to be on standby, right? So I think sometimes they want to attack that relationship dynamic for some reason. But I feel like this tends to be the less problematic relationship dynamic of the two. Like usually when you hear colorism coming up, you usually don't see a lot of brown skin, dark skin women and light skin mixed biracial men involved in it, like you see with the other ones over there, the other folks, right? You don't see that for some reason, right? If anything, you may even see like the light skin and brothers and dark skinned sisters being very cognizant of colorism and making sure that they raise their children, you know, not to engage in colorism and, you know, teaching them about the effects of colorism and teaching them and helping them, you know, avoid colorist brainwashing, right? You know, I've heard stories about that too. And honestly, there's no statistics on this, but I feel like low key, when it comes to cross skin tone relationships, I feel like, and I may be wrong about this, but I really think I'm right. But I feel like the more successful relationship of the two tend to be brown skin, dark skinned women with light skin mixed biracial men. I feel like that's the more successful of the two relationship dynamics, oddly enough. Um, and I feel like it's partially because both parties tend to have a good head on their shoulders, right? I feel like if a light skinned dude is colorist, I feel like he would just avoid being with a dark skinned woman, right? If he didn't want his children to look dark skinned or to have certain features, he would just avoid women with those features using common sense, right? So oftentimes when it comes down to the light skinned mixed biracial men with brown skin, dark skinned women, I just feel like when it comes to kids, I feel like he may want his children to be blacker, right? because as we know, colorism affects light-skinned people's identity, give them identity issues, right? So he may want his children to have a stronger connection to blackness, right? Or either, the way that his children look don't matter, he'll just take what God blesses them with, right? And I feel like more or less it's the same with brown-skinned, dark-skinned women, who get with light-skinned mixed biracial men, But I'm not going to say that these relationships are 100% perfect and that there's no colorism at all, but I feel like just the amount of it is much less compared to the amount that comes from dark-skinned men and light-skinned women relationships. But this is just something to think about, right? And I know some folks are probably going to be in their feelings about this video, but if it don't apply, let it fly, only a hit dog hollers, all right? But what do you think? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.